Yo, what's going on, everybody? You are watching Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Seatman, and coming up on today's show, we have our official Week 9 preview as the Minnesota Vikings travel to Detroit to take on the Lions. Now, coming up, we're going to do a deep dive on the Detroit Lions, talk about how they've been successful yet again this season, and why I truly believe they should be the favorite to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Also, get you guys updates on the latest Vikings injury news, Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. And then I got my keys to victory to how the Vikings can somehow win this ball game. And then at the tail end of today's show, I got my official score prediction. But the Week 9 betting odds, the Lions do come into this game as a 9.5-point favorite at home. And the bookmakers set the over-under at 47.5 points. So clearly they believe the Lions are going to roll the Vikings. And I don't blame them for thinking that because the Lions have owned Minnesota over the last couple of seasons. And the Vikings actually haven't won in Detroit since 2020 when Alexander Mattison had a big-time game. And they're 1-6 in their last 7 games against the Lions. And currently they're on a 5-game losing streak. And everything we think about the Vikings, the Lions are the complete opposite. Where the Vikings are a finesse football team. They're all about these deep passing concepts, trying to beat you on the outsides. Where the Lions are one of the most physical football teams. They're trying to beat you up in the trenches for all 4 quarters. That's why the KOC Dan Campbell matchup, it has been a heavy advantage for Dan Campbell. So obviously the odds are stacked against the Vikings in this one. But if you guys want the Vikes to beat the Lions, just hit me with a SKOL down below in the comments section. We might need to get 800,000 SKOLs on today's show just to have a chance to win this game. So if you guys could, hit me with a SKOL down below. All right, let's deep dive into the Detroit Lions. We're going to go over a bunch of stats here and just talk about their season. And, like I was saying, if I had to pick a team to come out of the NFC, I would truly pick them. And now they started off this season against the Green Bay Packers week 1, ended up losing this game 27-13. And, everybody was panicking. The people were saying, like, oh, maybe the loss of Ben Johnson, maybe the loss of Aaron Glenn is too much to overcome. Well, they shut that door real quickly. Week 2, dropping 52 on the Chicago Bears. And then they the week after that, beat the Baltimore Ravens 38-30, beat the Browns at home, beat the Bengals on the road, ended up losing to the Chiefs 30-17. But then they also beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers week 7, 24-9. And Vikings are coming off a mini bye week. Well, the Lions are actually coming off their bye week as they had that during week 8, and they're 5-2 on the season. But this team is stacked. They get it done on both sides of the football. Offense, one of the best ones in the NFL, second in points per game, averaging 30.7. And what's kind of impressive about the Lions here is it's not even like they're an elite third down conversion team. They're 21st in the league, only picking up 37.6% of their third downs, but obviously they've always been a dominant rushing team, running over 130 yards per game. And then their defense, even though they lost Aaron Glenn, Calvin Shepard's done a fantastic job. They got some of the best personnel in the league, and also these numbers, they have had their whole secondary out majority of the season, but they stopped the run at the high level. They don't give up a lot of yards, and they are still about middle of the pack on third downs. But Jared Goff, let's talk about him. I think he is one of the most underrated quarterbacks and underappreciated quarterbacks in the National Football League because every single season, his offense is dropping 30-plus points per game. Doesn't matter if it's Ben Johnson or the new offensive coordinator. He has just been prolific as a passer. His completion percentage, 75%. That's ridiculous. 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and has a quarterback rating of 116.4. But why is Jared Goff so successful? I think he can get a lot of credit to his running backs, and that being Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. There are some games I watched Jahmyr Gibbs, and this guy literally reminds me, and I don't know if it's just because of Lions uniform, he reminds me of Barry Sanders. He looks like he is gliding out there on the football field, and then they got the perfect 1-2 punch where you got, the Lightning and Jahmyr Gibbs to the Thunder, which is David Montgomery, who's also had a very good year. 78 carries, 355 yards, 4.6 yards per clip. I mean, both these guys have been absolutely fantastic. But it doesn't stop there with the weapons they have. They have 3 elite pass-catching options. Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, you talk about guys that are underrated. He is just that. 50 receptions on the year, has already found the end zone 7 times. Now, Jameson Williams has had a little slow start to the season, but he's a guy, any given play, can take the top off the defense and go score 6. And then Sam Laporta, talk about underrated yet again. One of the more underrated tight ends in the National Football League. And, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here. It's just truly what I think. The Lions offense is going to torch the Vikings defense. Number one, the Lions and Jared Goff just own Brian Flores. Like, we can just call it like it is. Like, in years past, even if the Vikings defense were at the top of the league in all of the rankings, whenever we went against the Lions, he has torched us. And now, with the Vikings defense not being as good as it's been, specifically last season, I expect it to even be worse because the Vikings defense, it's a complete joke right now. I think Kevin O'Connell's getting majority of the heat for on the coaching staff, and as he should, he's the head coach. But Brian Flores also deserves some heat too. I mean, you're giving up 334 yards per game. You still can't stop the run, 24th in the league, and you're giving up 23.1 points per game, which is 18th in the league. Like, I am stunned that these are the numbers because I thought heading into the season where it's like, all right, you got Javon Hargrave, you got Jonathan Allen, you should be able to get home with 4 or 5 guys. Well, both those guys stink. Dallas Turner hasn't taken a step. Andrew Van Ginkel's been hurt. Blake Cashman finally came back, but he even struggled against the Chargers. So that's why the Vikings defense has been piss poor this season. And I think the Lions are, potentially going to hang a 40 burger on our heads this Sunday in Detroit. Again, I hope I'm wrong, but we'll wait and see what happens. I'll give you guys my score prediction here in just a second, but you guys predict the score for me first. Vikings versus Lions in Detroit this weekend. NFC North showdown. How you're feeling? Predict the score down below. Now we'll dive into the keys to victory and the latest injury news here in a second, but I got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by gaining $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, and you can pick up to the same player 3 times in the same lineup. So if you guys want to pick more on J.J. McCarthy's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. You guys can also follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, celebrity, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today, plug in that promo code CLNS, and we'll hook you guys up with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. But massive shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, let's start off with the Vikings injury report here. Again, we haven't had any official practices just yet, but this is what we're hearing out of Minnesota. Christian Darrisaw still rehabbing that knee injury, but he is expected to go this Sunday, which would be a huge get. Andrew Van Ginkel, I would be absolutely shocked if he is out there this Sunday. I would be honestly shocked if Van Ginkel plays another game this season for the Vikes. But you still got Brian O'Neill doing at that knee injury. And we got 2 new injuries. How fun. Josh Oliver left the Chargers game with a foot injury. He wasn't out there on practice on Monday. And same with Jonathan Gennard, who left that game with an ankle injury. He wasn't out there as well. So you're getting CD back. Should be getting Brian O'Neill back. But you're going to need Jonathan Gennard to be out there to have any chance defensively. And we're going to dive into the keys to victory here. Number one, you got to somehow win in the trenches. I have no faith in the Vikings winning in the trenches, but if you somehow could, you may have a chance to win this game. But the stats suggest you're probably going to get your ass handed to you. The Vikings run offense this year, averaging 93.9 yards per game. That's 26th in the league. And the Lions rush defense, only giving up 87.4, which is 4th in the league. So I'm assuming Mr. Kevin O'Connell won't be able to run the ball yet again. But also, I got no faith in the Vikings stopping the run. Jahmyr Gibbs is probably going to run all over you. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns last year in Week 18. That's when the Vikings had a top 3 rushing defense. Well, this year, it's 24th in the National Football League, giving up 130.4 yards per game. So I am assuming here that the Vikings won't be able to run the ball. You won't be able to stop the run. Probably not a recipe for success against the Lions. But again, if you want any chance to win this football game, you might have to have the best wide receiver in the league take this thing over. We have not seen a Justin Jefferson true takeover game just yet. Where, back in 2022, when the Vikings won 13 games, like he had multiple games where he just literally put the team on his back, and he would have like 15 catches, 190 yards, finds the end zone 2 times. So if they want a chance, you're going to have to get 18 to football. And what drives me crazy, I know touchdowns aren't my favorite stat when evaluating wide receivers. The guy's got 1, and that was coming back in week 1. So this guy hasn't scored since opening week of the NFL season. Let's try to get 18 in the end zone this upcoming week against the Lions. And another key to victory here, you're going to get the new quarterback juice from J.J. McCarthy. I just think it's natural, whether it's kind of in the same bucket as like a head coach gets fired and, they have the interim step in and like that next week, like the guys are trying to play for him, playing with a little more intensity or a little locked in that week at practice. I'm sure J.J. McCarthy had that same impact. Number one, just because of the person he is, just because of the leader he is, but also because of how bad Carson Wentz has been over the last couple of weeks. Like, I'm sure the Vikings, the guys in this locker room kind of have new life knowing that number 9 will be out there. And again, if you want another chance to win, you're going to have to force multiple turnovers, which kind of seems unlikely. Jared Goff rarely puts the ball in harm's way. He's a very efficient quarterback. He's not going to try to do too much. He's just going to do what the defense, or he's just going to take what the defense gives him. And, what is very concerning is if you remove week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals, where the Vikings had multiple takeaways in that game, the Vikings outside of that week are only averaging half a takeaway per game. This is a Brian Flores defense. That is so concerning. And, again, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, if you take away any teams, like best game defensively, probably the stats aren't looking too good, but half a takeaway a game, and also in that game, playing Jake Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals, they're not that good of a football team. So, I don't know. I just don't have a lot of faith in this one. And, lastly, you're going to have to play a perfect game. I mean, again, you're playing the Detroit Lions, a team that has absolutely owned you over the last couple of years. It is a head coach mismatch where everything Kevin O'Connell doesn't do well, Dan Campbell does very, very well. And having the Lions, with them coming off their bye week on the road, it has to be one of the toughest games to play in the NFL. And plus, you get the NFC North juice on top of it. So it's just a tough spot for the Vikings. I really doubt if, they're going to be able to pull this one out here. And that's why I think the Lions are going to absolutely torch them this weekend. I got the Lions winning this one 42-17. I think the defense is just going to, get gashed yet again. And, Jared Goff has owned the Detroit Lions, or owned the Minnesota Vikings and Brian Flores, and I think it's going to be more of the same this upcoming weekend. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. But I got the Lions winning this matchup 42-17. It's just going to take a perfect game for the Vikings. Like, the Lions are a very good team, and, I think us Vikings fans, like, we kind of felt like we hit an all-time low last week. I think it's coming after this Lions game, where we're really talking about, like, man, should Kevin O'Connell, should Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, really how hot should their seats be? So we'll wait and see what happens, but I'm not feeling good. I got Lions beating the Vikes 42-17 this Sunday. So you guys let me know. What's your confidence level in the Vikings beating the Lions? Scale it for me 1 to 100 down below in the comments section. I'm probably sitting at 8%. 8% chance to beat Detroit this weekend. So we'll see what happens. But we will be going live for the game no matter what. So make sure you guys tune in for our watch party this Sunday. Going live an hour before kickoff. I'll see you guys next time. As always, let's go Vikes.